Our customers can compete with anyone when it comes to hyperscale and efficient hardware.
How do you lead that?
Number one reason a company fails is they don't get market transitions.
Absolutely. I think the industry is going through a tremendous transformation.
You know, everybody was taken by surprise, you know, not least me, when Cisco decided to give us your cloud and virtualization portfolio to test independently. Was that your decision?
Yeah, I was part of that decision, but
Yeah.
it was actually led by my colleague, Kelly Ahuja.
Okay. And why did you guys do that? Because it took everybody by surprise, and obviously, you know, hindsight's 2020, it turns out it was a hugely successful thing to do, but why did you feel it was important to do that?
Particularly in this new world, that open standards, open source, all of this stuff is very, very important. So our customers want our solutions to be built on components that can be integrated, bring in third parties, integrate into other types of solutions, but they consume them generally as a holistic solution.
Right.
We tend to see the market in three buckets. One, which is DIY, where they have large development teams and can take all these components and stitch them together. The other end of the market is where they consume things as a service, single pane of glass. But the sweet spot is in the middle, where they want the openness, want to make sure that things can come together, but they do want to just consume it in one big piece.
I mean, and you did do that, and then when we announced that we were going to do NFVI to VNF interoperability, you were the second company after Metaswitch to sign up for that. And then what about that open source component though? Because I hear people becoming disillusioned with the development of the open source piece of the networks of tomorrow. They're worried that it's becoming politicized, that there's activities going on behind the scenes where companies are, you know, whichever side of your brain is more selfish, they're using that side as opposed to really doing what people are supposed to do in terms of open source, which is, you know, collaborate and cooperate. Right. Do you think we're in danger of entering a trough of disillusionment around open source?
Open source really is based on the amount of contributions and the diversity of the people contributing to that code base. We see things like OpenStack, Open Daylight, others have a broad community, but still being able to downstream these things, they're complicated pieces of code because of that community. So we see a market opportunity of, instead of the market transition, instead of the old kind of standardization, having people meet together around the world for many years and out pop something, people now vote with code.
Right.
And voting with code can be messy.
Yeah.
But it's also important because the industry, it allows the industry to move in a direction where people are able to do it through execution and not through the power of the pulpit or whatnot.
Yeah. So maybe part of the concern is around the appearance of chaos, but within that chaos, there's as long as there's momentum, then that's the main thing, right?
What we see is not just on the code piece, but in the approach. So now you start to see the transition towards model-based services, services built on models instead of templates. And having those models open for the community so that when you say, hey, I want to instantiate, let's say, a VPN model, there's a standard model for that people can consume. Everyone understands and level sets on what that service is. So it's not just on the code base, but on the services on top of it. And that again is being driven through an open community that is model driven.
So it's like crowdsourcing, code sourcing, and service sourcing.
Right, exactly.
Essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense to me. You know, even as short a time ago as 18 months, I heard from many people that they didn't think that Cisco would genuinely embrace virtualization and NFV. How can they do this? It's going to, you know, be eating their own babies. It's going to destroy their business model. They've got to sell, you know, expensive router ports. This is hopeless. You know, they're never going to do this. And then boom, I mean, this absolute misconception was just blown out of the water. You know, that was a signal moment in the communications industry. Behind the scenes, something must have changed at Cisco to embrace disruption in this way. Is the culture changing here internally?
So a couple things happened. That is certainly the outward perspective for many, many years. And quite frankly, since I've only joined a few years ago, that was my perception coming from the outside. When I joined, though, I was amazed to see that behind the curtain, Cisco is doing a lot of work in virtualization and had been studying this problem for a long time. And the problem is complex. The things that we're trying to virtualize are very complicated systems. And so you want to make sure that the brand, the quality, the kind of customer relationships that you've formed over the years with partners and customers directly are maintained as you go through this transition. So there was a lot of upfront technical work that we had to do to make sure that things worked properly. But I think one of the most defining moments for us was when our customers increasingly kept asking, we want this, and Cisco, of course, always has been listening to their customers.
Absolutely.
So as soon as the customers are starting to lead you in this transition, then we were very comfortable making the pivot, and we were able to pivot very, very fast. And not just with our own internal efforts, but obviously through our acquisitions that we did to ensure that we pivot quickly.
Well, and now, of course, you know, Cisco and Ericsson, I was running an event yesterday, and Cisco and Ericsson were there, and I just stopped in the middle of the panel, which I was moderating, and I was like, oh, you guys are, you know, you can install, you know, core virtualization along with an HDS 8000, and that makes really good sense. And it kind of turned into quite a remarkable moment, almost like a sort of pivot in the recognition of the audience of how the industry is changing, right in front of our eyes. Because obviously that's totally new, but potentially confusing for customers. How are you going to assuage their concerns that, you know, this is going to make their lives more complicated, or all of the obvious questions which they might ask about a partnership like this?
Yeah, so, you know, with the partnership, I think fortunately, these are two market-leading companies, but in slightly different areas.
Yeah, the jigsaw fits.
The jigsaw fits, and so then it just comes down to the execution. I had a particular market or customer engagement in flight, and now how does that change what is happening? And of course, the teams are working through that with due diligence and you know, day and night on that. But I do see some of the advantages, in addition to just the infrastructure piece, is around that network management. I mean, Ericsson has a well-known OSS stack.
That's right.
Huge capability around system integration as we take our customers through that. Cisco has a lot of the network orchestration with our TailAF acquisition. We have the virtual routers in that area of the portfolio. So now as we start to couple these things together, the customers also resonate with it, going, wow, that's perfect, because I can see where the strengths are and how we can get there. I don't think either company alone could do that with the same kind of confidence that we could together.
And I've been saying for the last year that I think the systems integrators, you know, have the potential to become giants of the future, really, because somebody has to put all this together, both at the white box level and, well, everything. You know, people need help. Ericsson has that, and it has a lot of it, which means that you know, don't have to expand to fill that space in your own portfolio, and leave Cisco to focus on the things which it's really good at. So, you know, I mean, only time will tell, right? But it certainly was a surprise. What would you say the biggest advantages of Cisco Sun, if I can call it that, versus Nokaloo or Huawei would be in terms of the virtualization portfolio now?
Well, I think one of the biggest advantages is we're taking two number ones in the industry together, and with a very clear market purpose. So this isn't just a friendship or a collaboration in certain deals. We have very, very strong portfolios. The customers are leading us into this effort, so we have very clear market alignment around this. And we can start it immediately. There's not the regulatory, there's not the kind of bringing together the operations and P&Ls and all of the business together. We can start executing in the field today. It does also give us a portfolio and a customer base that other single companies really struggle with.
Where do you see Cisco being in the next 3 years?
Well, I see Cisco participating strongly. Obviously, it's all built around the infrastructure portfolio. That's the heart of everything that we do. We are a communications company, but building out from there, communications has taken a much broader perspective. So collaboration, and that's one of fast-growing part of our business around video communications and whatnot. Security is another huge area for us. We now, through our cloud partners, are connecting clouds together through intercloud and the fabric that stitches all these things together. And then, but we do see the cloud fundamentally changing as we go more DevOps, more container-based, thinner stacks, and then, of course, enabling all of the analytics. And all of these areas Cisco plays well in and has a strong portfolio, but they're all attach points for our partners and whatnot that builds up this ecosystem that allows a market transition to occur.
I just want to say, good job, G.
Thank you.
You've done it's impressive. And also, thank you for letting us test the solution, because that's a big deal.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other companies who now want to do the same thing, but you have that 1 year head start, which is obviously what we look for in fast-moving markets. So congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. Well, the great thing about cloud is that it changes very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So in light reading, we travel at light speed in the cloud.
Exactly.
So it's going to be a fun ride over those next few years.
Well, it's great to finally meet you. I hope we have a chance to work together some more in the future.
It's my pleasure, Steve.
Thank you very much.